The day he packed his bags to leave with her, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just smiled, because I knew the day he'd come back, the world he once owned would no longer exist. And when he did return, neither I, nor his empire, would be there to greet him. It's strange how betrayal doesn't start with a thunderclap, it starts with silence. Subtle changes, missed dinners, a phone face down at the table, a faint perfume that doesn't belong to you. For weeks, I tried to convince myself that I was imagining it all. Daniel was just busy, I told myself. He was under pressure at work. He wasn't pulling away, he was just tired. But the truth was sitting right in front of me all along. I just didn't want to look at it. Daniel and I had built our life together from nothing. 7 years ago, we shared a one-bedroom apartment and a dream. He had ambition, I had faith. When he was broke, I supported him. When he failed, I reminded him who he was. When he built his company, I was there every step of the way, writing proposals, designing the brand, calling clients. I wasn't just his wife. I was his foundation, his silent partner, his anchor. But somewhere between the late nights and the board meetings, he began to drift. It started with small things, coming home later, his phone locked, his scent changing. He stopped touching me absent-mindedly like he used to, stopped asking about my day, stopped noticing when I stayed awake waiting for him. And then, one evening, he walked in with lipstick on his collar. A soft pink stain that glared at me louder than any confession ever could. He didn't even try to hide it. When I confronted him, he gave me that dismissive, tired look, the kind you give someone you've already decided to leave. "Emily, don't start," he said. "Don't start," I echoed, my voice shaking. "There's lipstick on your shirt, Daniel. Whose is it? It's not what you think." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, so it's a new marketing strategy now." He turned away, rubbing the back of his neck, silent. That silence was my answer. Her name was Chloe, his secretary, younger, louder, flashier. I met her once, accidentally. She smiled too wide, her perfume too sweet. "You're so lucky to have a husband like Daniel," she had said, looking straight into my eyes. I didn't realize she was already trying to take my place. Weeks later, Daniel came home late again. But this time, he didn't just come late, he came to end everything. "I think we've grown apart," he said, not even sitting down. "Grown apart," I whispered. "Daniel, I built you. I built us." He sighed. "You don't understand me anymore, Emily. You've changed." "No," I said, my voice trembling. "You've changed who you want to be understood by." He packed his bags that night. He didn't even look back. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, heart breaking quietly inside my chest. But even as the pain dug deep, something colder, stronger, started forming in me. The kind of strength only betrayal can teach. When the door shut behind him, I didn't collapse. I didn't cry. I stood there for a long time, staring at the emptiness he left behind. Then, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat at the table, and whispered to the silence, "Fine. Let's see who really falls apart." The next morning, I dressed in black. Not for mourning, but for war. I went to the office, our company. His name was on the logo, but I had built every corner of it. The employees greeted me with hesitant smiles, they all knew. Rumors travel fast in places where people whisper success and scandal in the same breath. I walked into my office, closed the door, and opened the files. Every contract, every client, every transaction, I had always handled the details Daniel didn't care about. And now, those details would become my weapon. He might have been the face of the company, but I was the skeleton beneath it, the one that held it up. I called my lawyer, a man named Raymond who had seen this kind of story before. "I want to restructure my assets," I said calmly. Quietly, he raised an eyebrow. "Divorce, reinvention," I corrected. "And I want it airtight." Over the next few weeks, I played my role perfectly. To Daniel's board, I was still the devoted wife managing operations while he took some time away. Behind the scenes, I was entangling my life from his, piece by piece. Transferring shares, closing accounts, selling properties. Every move was quiet, legal, and precise. While he was vacationing in Paris with Chloe, sipping champagne on my credit card, I was dismantling the empire he thought was his. I didn't steal from him. I simply took what I had earned, the life I built, the profits I created, the legacy that had my name carved into its roots. Some nights, I would stand on the balcony of our mansion, looking out over the city, remembering the woman I used to be. The one who believed in fairy tales, in loyalty, in building dreams together. She was gone now. In her place was someone new, colder, smarter, unbreakable. By the time Daniel's vacation photos hit social media, him kissing Chloe under the Eiffel Tower, I had already executed the final step. I resigned from the company, withdrew my investments, and sold my shares to a rival firm under a pseudonym. Every penny that was once ours was now mine. The day I left, I walked through the office one last time. The walls still smelled faintly of him, of us. I stopped by his chair, placed my wedding ring on his desk, and left a note written in my clean, deliberate handwriting. Greater than, you built nothing. You just stood beside me while I did. As I closed the door behind me, the pain that had haunted me for months finally started to fade. Not because I stopped loving him, but because I finally started loving myself more. In the following weeks, I disappeared from that city entirely. I bought a small apartment by the sea, far from the noise, far from the memories. I changed my name, my look, my everything. And as the waves crashed outside my new window, I began to rebuild, not for him this time, but for me. He had abandoned me for his secretary, thinking he was walking towards something better. But the day he'd come back, he'd find nothing left. No house, no business, no wife waiting to forgive him. Only the ghost of the woman who once believed in him, and the empire she quietly took with her. And I couldn't wait for that day to come. When he returned, I wasn't there to greet him. The house he once called his empire was silent, stripped of everything he thought he owned, including me. He had left a wife who loved him. He came back to a ghost who had already burned his kingdom to the ground. 6 months passed before Daniel finally returned. 6 months since the night he'd walked out of our home with a suitcase and a smirk, promising himself a new life with Chloe, the woman who had whispered lies into his ear until he believed he was invincible. He must have thought I'd be waiting, broken and humiliated. That I'd call him. That I'd beg. Because men like Daniel always assume the women they hurt will stay trapped in the ashes. But when he opened the door to what used to be our mansion, the only thing waiting for him was the echo of his own footsteps. The house was empty, eerily empty. No furniture, no art, no sign of the life we once shared. Just dust, silence, and his own reflection in the dark windows. Emily, he called out. His voice sounded small in the vast emptiness. He moved from room to room, confusion building with each step. The walls that once held our photographs were bare. The shelves were stripped clean. Even the clock in the living room was gone. He reached for his phone and tried to call me. The number no longer existed. Panic replaced arrogance. He went through his contacts, searching for familiar names, his business partner, his accountant, his assistant. One by one, each call ended the same way. This number has been disconnected. Then he checked the bank accounts. The passwords didn't work. The screens blinked red. Access denied. He tried another account. User not recognized. That was when it hit him. Everything was gone. All those years he believed he was the mastermind, the builder, the genius behind our success. He was nothing without the woman he had underestimated. The truth unfolded like poison through his veins. I had been the one holding everything together. And now, with me gone, his empire had collapsed like a house of cards. In a small cafe miles away, I sat reading the morning newspaper. On the business page, there it was, the headline that made me smile. Miller and Company, faces sudden bankruptcy after internal collapse. I sipped my coffee slowly, watching the waves crash beyond the window. The same man who once said, "You'd be nothing without me," had just been proven wrong in front of the entire world. I had rebuilt my life under a new name, Elena Harper. I lived by the ocean, in a house filled with sunlight and silence. My hair was shorter, my eyes a little colder, but my heart was free. I had started a foundation that helped women recover from betrayal and financial manipulation. Every woman I met carried a story like mine, different faces, same scars. Helping them heal was the most powerful revenge I could imagine. But fate, I've learned, never stays quiet for long. One rainy afternoon, my assistant, Claire, walked into my office. "There's someone downstairs asking for you," she said softly. "He says it's urgent." I looked up from my desk. Who? She hesitated. Daniel Miller. For a long time, I said nothing. Just silence, the kind that fills a room and makes time feel heavy. Then, calmly, I said, send him up. When he walked in, he didn't look like the man I used to know. The Daniel I remembered had confidence woven into every step. This one looked older, tired, defeated. His suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, his eyes hollow. Success had abandoned him just like he abandoned me. For a moment, he just stared. Emily, he whispered, his voice cracking. You're alive. I smiled faintly. You sound surprised. I thought you disappeared. No one knew where you went. I tried to find you. Did you? I asked softly. You should have thought of that before you left. He sank into the chair across from me, running a trembling hand through his hair. Everything's gone, Emily. The company, the money, Chloe, everything. I leaned back, crossing my legs, my tone calm but sharp. Ah, so the secretary didn't stick around after all. His eyes flickered with shame. She used me. When things started falling apart, she left. Took what little I had left in my accounts. He laughed bitterly. I guess I deserved it. I tilted my head. You did. He looked up, pain swimming in his eyes. You took everything, didn't you? No, I said quietly. I took what was mine. You just never realized how much of it was. He stared at me, lost for words. I thought you loved me. I did, I replied. But love doesn't mean letting someone destroy you. You abandoned me for someone who wanted your money. I left you for someone who wanted my peace. Guess who won? His face fell. For the first time, he looked truly broken. I came back to fix things, he said weakly. There's nothing left to fix, I answered. You burned it all the day you walked out that door. Silence filled the room. The rain pattered against the windows, the only sound between us. I could see the weight of regret settling over him, heavy and suffocating. Do you hate me? He asked suddenly. I looked at him for a long time before answering. No, Daniel, I don't hate you. You taught me too much for me to hate you. You taught me that love without respect is a slow death. That silence can be louder than screaming. And that the only thing more dangerous than a betrayed woman is one who learns her worth. He swallowed hard. I've lost everything. Not everything, I said, standing up. You still have your reflection. You can look at him every day and remember what your choices cost you. He stood too, desperate now. Emily, please, I'm not asking for money or the company. I just want to make things right. Let me explain. There's nothing you could say that would change the past, I cut in gently. You can't rebuild something you demolished with your own hands. He looked down, defeated. His voice cracked when he spoke again. I still love you. Then you should have thought about that before you threw me away, I said. Love without loyalty is just a lie you tell yourself to sleep at night. He took a deep breath, tears glistening in his eyes. I was stupid. I thought she cared about me. She cared about your ego, I said. And when your ego collapsed, she left. Just like you left me when you thought you didn't need me anymore. He didn't speak again, just stood there, trembling, drenched in the reality of what he'd lost. After a long silence, I stepped closer, my voice calm but final. Do you know what hurts the most, Daniel? It's not that you betrayed me. It's that you underestimated me. You thought I'd be the one crawling back, begging for pieces of what we had. But look around. I gestured to the office, the awards on the shelves, the foundation's logo on the glass door. I built this from the ruins you left behind. You didn't break me, you built me. He nodded slowly, wiping his eyes. You're right, I don't deserve forgiveness. I smiled faintly. Forgiveness isn't something you deserve. It's something you earn. And you never tried. He turned to leave, shoulders slumped, and I called after him softly, Daniel. He stopped but didn't look back. Do yourself a favor, I said. Next time you build something with someone, don't walk away when it's finally strong. Because the next woman might not leave you standing. He gave a small nod and walked out. I stood there, watching him disappear down the hall until the glass doors closed behind him. There was no satisfaction, no vengeance burning in my chest. Only peace. Quiet, heavy peace. After he left, I walked to the window, watching the rain fall over the ocean. The waves were wild that day, crashing hard against the shore, just like me once, breaking over and over until I learned how to become the storm itself. I whispered softly to the reflection in the glass, the woman who had survived it all. Greater than, He abandoned me for his secretary. When he returned, I was gone, and so was everything he thought he owned. Because I was the only thing worth keeping. Outside, the world moved on. Inside, I smiled for the first time in years. I didn't just move on, I rose. And from that moment on, I promised myself one thing. Never again will I beg for love that has to be earned. The past no longer haunted me. It built me, and for the first time, the woman he left behind wasn't crying anymore, she was thriving. Because sometimes, losing everything you thought you needed is the only way to find who you really are. And that was my freedom.